do you remember your first audition? You were like six years old, is that right?
Yes, I probably had a lisp. I had no front teeth.
Diane Lane stepped into Hollywood at age 6, establishing herself as one of the industry's most enduring talents before her upcoming 60th birthday in January 2025. Now, Diane Lane has been at the center of some rumors for years. And guess what? At 60, she's finally breaking her silence.
I mean, you gotta really toe the line when you emulate certain things. I don't know.
What does this mean for her legacy? How will Hollywood react? And most importantly, why now? Stick around, because by the time we reach the end of this, you'll either be nodding in approval, completely shocked, or questioning everything you thought you knew about Diane Lane. Let's get into it. The truth about her early fame. Diane Lane's journey into acting didn't start in some fancy Hollywood studio or with a big-name agent scouting her talent. It started on the streets of New York City. Imagine a 6-year-old girl full of dreams and curiosity, tagging along with her father, Burt Lane, a drama coach, as he took her to her very first audition. And get this, she was already savvy enough to add a year to her age, just to make herself seem more appealing. Talk about being ahead of the game. That audition was for the La Mama Experimental Theater Club, a place that prided itself on pushing artistic boundaries, and little Diane fit right in. Can you picture it? A tiny girl stepping into the world of avant-garde theater, completely unfazed, as if she belonged there all along. Before long, her talent started turning heads, and she found herself performing Greek tragedies in Lebanon, of all places, with the La Mama repertory troupe. That's not exactly the typical childhood experience, is it? While most kids were playing in their backyards, Diane was bringing ancient scripts to life among actual ruins. And then, as if fate had been carefully plotting her course, legendary director George Roy Hill saw her in action and knew she had something special. For years, fans have speculated, insiders have hinted, and Hollywood has buzzed with one lingering question about Diane Lane. And now, at 60, she's finally answering it. What's the truth behind the rumors that have surrounded her for decades? And why did she wait so long to speak out? This jaw-dropping revelation will leave you speechless. At just 13, she landed a role in A Little Romance alongside Sir Laurence Olivier. Yes, that Laurence Olivier, the kind of actor who could make or break careers with a single word. And what did he say about her? He called her the next Grace Kelly. Can you even imagine being 13 years old and hearing something like that from one of the greatest actors of all time? That's the kind of praise that could either boost someone's confidence through the roof or put an insane amount of pressure on them. For Diane, it was a little bit of both. The media was all over her. By the time she was 14, Time magazine had put her on its cover, basically declaring her Hollywood's next big thing. This incredibly mature way of looking at it, saying, "I learned that these things are created. Very rarely are they earned." Let that sink in for a second. 14 years old, and she already understood how the industry worked. That a Time magazine cover wasn't necessarily a reflection of her actual achievements, but more of a promotional strategy. That kind of wisdom at that age? Rare. Now, Diane's childhood wasn't all bright lights and applause. Her family life was, to put it mildly, complicated. She was born into a world of instability. Her parents split up when she was just 14 days old. 14 days. That meant she grew up bouncing between two very different worlds, depending on which parent had her at the time. Her mother, Colleen Farrington, had been a singer and a model, while her father was deeply entrenched in the acting world. But their differences ran deeper than just career choices. At one point, her mother took her to Georgia without her father's permission, pulling Diane away from everything she knew. It took 6 weeks for Diane to make her way back to her father's care, and you can only imagine the emotional whiplash she must have felt. Her father, though, was her rock. He didn't just support her career, he prepared her for the industry in a way that few child actors ever experience. He had deep philosophical conversations with her, making sure she never felt like she was just some commodity being shuffled around by Hollywood. And here's what's really impressive. He trusted her judgment. At just 14, she was already reading scripts and making her own career choices, even turning down roles if she didn't believe in them. How many teenage actors get that kind of freedom and respect? That kind of foundation is probably why she never fell into the usual child star pitfalls. The early 80s were a whirlwind for Diane. She landed major roles in Francis Ford Coppola's The Outsiders and Rumblefish, rubbing shoulders with young actors who would go on to be massive stars: Tom Cruise, Rob Lowe, Nicolas Cage. Can you imagine being in a group of rising stars like that? It was an exciting time. But Hollywood can be brutal. When Streets of Fire and the Cotton Club didn't perform as well as expected, Diane had a choice to make. Most young actors in her position would have panicked, maybe taken any role just to stay relevant, but not Diane. Instead, she stepped away. She took a break from Hollywood and went to Georgia to reconnect with her mother. That move alone tells you everything you need to know about her. She wasn't just about chasing fame, she cared about her life outside of acting, about keeping herself grounded. Looking back, it's clear Diane Lane was never just another young actress swept up by Hollywood's hype machine. She had the talent, the maturity, and the self-awareness to navigate an industry that chews people up and spits them out. From the streets of New York to Greek tragedies in Lebanon, from sharing the screen with Sir Laurence Olivier to walking away from Hollywood when she needed to, her journey was anything but ordinary. Unexpected career turning points. Diane Lane's career has been a fascinating ride, full of unexpected turns, tough choices, and moments where she had to step back just to move forward again. Did you know that she had the chance to be in major films like Splash and Risky Business, but she turned them down? Why? Because she chose to take a different path, one that led her straight to Streets of Fire and the Cotton Club. Now, in hindsight, was that the best move? Hard to say, especially since the Cotton Club ended up flopping, which pushed her to take a break from the industry for the first time. That's Hollywood for you. One day you're on top, the next you're wondering if you should step away for a while. Diane has always been super intentional about the roles she takes, and that's what makes her career so interesting. She almost played Vivian Ward in Pretty Woman. Yes, the iconic role that made Julia Roberts a superstar. She even went through costume fittings for it. But scheduling conflicts messed everything up, and she had to let it go. Can you imagine how different things might have been if she had taken that role? Maybe she would have skyrocketed even sooner, but then again, maybe things played out exactly how they were meant to. That time away from Hollywood also gave her the chance to mend things with her mother back in Georgia. Sometimes stepping back from the chaos is exactly what you need. But of course, Hollywood wasn't done with her. The 90s came around, and little by little, she worked her way back up. My New Gun got people talking, especially at the Cannes Film Festival. Then came A Walk on the Moon in 1999, and suddenly, she was back in the spotlight. Critics were raving about her performance, calling her meltingly effective. That kind of comeback story is what makes Hollywood so unpredictable. Just when you think someone's career has faded, they come back stronger than ever. Diane Lane has spent decades keeping her private life out of the spotlight, but the speculation never stopped. From career-altering decisions to long-standing Hollywood rumors, fans have always wondered what was really going on behind the scenes. But now, at 60, she's finally confirming what we all suspected. What's the truth behind the rumors, and how has she navigated a career filled with triumphs and challenges? Stick around, because you won't believe what she just revealed. Behind her most iconic roles. Diane Lane is one of those actresses who doesn't just play a character, she completely becomes them. You ever watch someone on screen and forget they're acting? That's Diane. She's been doing this for decades, and it's not by accident. Her performances, from the heartbreakingly real Connie in Unfaithful to the quietly powerful Margaret in Let Him Go, have this rawness that makes you believe every single emotion she's portraying. But what's her secret? Well, it's not magic. It's preparation. And not just skimming through the script kind of preparation. We're talking deep, intense, almost obsessive work. She doesn't just read a script. She dissects it like a scientist trying to crack a code. She studies her characters inside and out. What they think, how they move, what makes them tick. She doesn't just memorize lines. She figures out why a character would say them in the first place. And that's what sets her apart. Take Unfaithful, for example. That role wasn't just about playing a woman who cheats on her husband. It was about capturing every little moment of temptation, guilt, excitement, and regret. And Diane didn't just wing it, she worked at it relentlessly. Some scenes took over 50 takes because she wanted to hit just the right emotional beat. Can you imagine doing the same heartbreaking scene over and over again until it's perfect? That takes patience, skill, and, honestly, an insane amount of dedication. But that's the thing about Diane. She's not about shortcuts. She's about getting it right. And a lot of that drive comes from something her dad told her early on. Always be a team player even when things get tough. And she took that advice to heart. No matter how grueling a shoot gets, she sticks it out and delivers. Now, preparation isn't just about memorizing lines and rehearsing scenes. It's about completely stepping into the character's shoes, even when they're wildly different from who she is in real life. Diane understands that to truly bring a character to life, she has to think like them, move like them, even breathe like them. She studies their emotional world, their fears, their dreams, their struggles. She pays attention to the little things, like how a woman in a different era would hold herself, or how someone with a secret would avoid eye contact. That kind of meticulous attention to detail, that's why her performances feel so authentic. And it's not just fans who notice, her co-stars see it too. John Malkovich, who worked with her on Secretariat, once said, "She's very well prepared and thinks about what she's doing. A lot. And she wants it to be good." And that's the thing. She doesn't just show up and do a job. She actually cares about making every performance great. That's why, when you watch her on screen, there's always something going on behind her eyes. Even in the quietest moments, there's depth. There's history. There's something bubbling under the surface. But here's the real magic. Diane doesn't just perform. She connects. She has this ability to make you feel what her character is feeling, even when they're making terrible decisions. Like in Unfaithful, where 1 minute you're judging Connie for cheating, and the next you're actually feeling her longing, her loneliness, her excitement, and then her crushing guilt. That's not easy to pull off. Entertainment Weekly's Owen Gleiberman even called her performance in that film a revelation because of how much emotion she conveyed without even speaking. And that's the mark of a truly great actor, someone who can say everything with just a look. Her commitment to authenticity doesn't just stop at individual roles. She has this bigger picture approach where she truly tries to understand people. When she's playing someone from a different time period, she doesn't just think about what they wore or how they talked. She thinks about their whole reality. She once said, "Whenever I portray a person from back in time, I have to remember what it is to be a woman who doesn't have access to power." And that right there is why she's so good at period pieces. She doesn't just act the part, she immerses herself in it. She gets what it feels like to be that person in that time, which makes her performances feel so real. And let's not forget her versatility. She can do drama, comedy, and thrillers. In Trumbo, she balanced humor with emotional depth, making sure she wasn't just a side character, but someone who added real weight to the story. In Let Him Go, she played a strong, determined woman dealing with unimaginable loss. And you could feel her pain, her resilience, her quiet strength. Every role she takes on, she finds new layers, new angles, new emotions to explore. And here's the best part. She's not done. Diane Lane keeps evolving, keeps getting better, keeps finding new ways to surprise us. She's graced the big screen for decades, captivating audiences with her talent and timeless beauty. But behind the scenes, Diane Lane has faced obstacles that few knew about until now. At 60, she's finally setting the record straight on the rumors that have followed her throughout her career. What's the truth? And how has she turned challenges into personal growth? You won't want to miss this. Personal growth through challenges. Diane Lane's journey through Hollywood isn't just about fame or success. It's about resilience, self-discovery, and knowing how to protect her peace in an industry that can easily break people. And let's be honest, Hollywood isn't exactly known for its kindness, right? It's a world where young actors get chewed up and spit out if they're not careful. But Lane? She learned early on how to manage the chaos without losing herself. She built boundaries, real ones, the kind that kept her safe from all the nonsense that comes with being in the spotlight. And she wasn't naive about it either. She had that street smart edge that kept her one step ahead. "I was a very street-savvy kid. I knew who to give a wide berth to." That kind of awareness saved her from a lot of the traps that so many young actors fall into. Think about how many Hollywood stars have lost themselves along the way. Burned out, manipulated, or just crushed under the pressure. But Lane, she knew better. She knew when to step back, when to protect her energy, and when to let things roll off her back. And that awareness didn't just help her survive. It shaped the way she saw the world, especially when it came to vulnerability. I used to really be uncomfortable with that word, vulnerable. Some people fear it. Some people bury it. And isn't that so true? Vulnerability can feel like a weakness, but for her, it became a superpower. Vulnerability is a tremendous gift, certainly in my line of work. She learned that embracing it made her performances richer, her relationships deeper, and her understanding of herself even stronger. But finding inner peace, that's a whole other journey. Hollywood is loud. It's chaotic. It's filled with pressure from every angle, aging, career shifts, expectations from everyone. But Lane figured out a way to stay grounded. She didn't just rely on one thing. She built a whole lifestyle around keeping herself balanced. Meditation? Check. Yoga? Absolutely. Long hikes to clear her head? All the time. She even makes sure to set aside moments for mindful reading and reflection. And when it comes to aging? Oh, she has that figured out too. While so many people in Hollywood are obsessed with fighting time, chasing youth with every treatment and procedure possible, Lane has a completely different approach. She talks about her Teflon soul, this philosophy that basically means you don't let life's challenges stick to you in a way that weighs you down. Whatever comes your way, you either let it slide or you cook with it. How good is that? Either let it go or turn it into something useful. That's a mindset more people could use, not just in Hollywood, but in life. From heartbreaks to triumphs, Diane Lane's life has been as dramatic as the roles she's played on screen. Now, at 60, she's breaking her silence on the most talked about rumors and the relationships that truly shaped her path. What really happened behind the scenes? What's the truth about her love life? It's time to find out. Relationships that shaped her journey. Diane Lane's artistic journey has been shaped by the people she's met along the way. From family members who influenced her perspective to industry friends and romantic relationships that left their mark. And honestly, isn't that the case for everyone? We're all shaped by the people we meet, the ones who push us forward, the ones who challenge us, and even the ones who break our hearts. Diane's story is no different. Except, of course, hers is wrapped up in Hollywood glamour, legendary friendships, and a career that has spanned decades. It all started with her father, Burton Eugene Lane. He wasn't just her dad, he was also her acting coach. And if you think about it, that's a tricky combination. Imagine your parent being the person who teaches you how to command a scene while also making sure you eat your vegetables. But Burton was different. He wasn't just giving Diane pep talks about memorizing lines. He was arming her with real industry knowledge, the kind most kids could only dream of getting. Thanks to his friendships with old-school Hollywood icons like John Cassavetes and Gina Rowlands, Diane had an insider's perspective before she was even a teenager. And then there was her grandmother, Eleanor Scott. Now, this woman wasn't in the film industry, but her influence on Diane's acting was undeniable. She was a Pentecostal preacher, and if you've ever been to a church service where the preacher really knows how to command a room, you know that's a performance in itself. The energy, the emotion, the ability to make an entire congregation hang on to every word. That's a skill set. And Diane, she soaked it all up. It's no wonder she developed such a captivating presence on stage and screen. But mentors and family are only part of the story. Diane's friendships within the industry have been just as meaningful. One of her more well-known connections is with Matthew McConaughey. Now, Matthew had admired Diane for years, all the way back to her role in Lonesome Dove. And when they finally got to work together, it was like two old friends finally getting the chance to collaborate after years of near misses. Diane once said, "I had a blast working with Matthew, and it's about time that we got to work together after all these years." Can you imagine how fun that must have been? Two actors with that much talent and charisma finally sharing the screen? It's the kind of full-circle moment that makes Hollywood feel a little magical. And of course, we can't talk about Diane's relationships without mentioning her brief romance with John Bon Jovi. Now, this wasn't some dramatic tabloid-fueled scandal. It was just two young people enjoying each other's company at the height of their careers. They dated for about 5 months in 1985, and looking back, Diane described it as a wonderful experience. In an interview with Andy Cohen, she said, "Every girl should have such a wonderful experience when she's that young." And honestly, doesn't that just make you smile? It wasn't a messy, bitter breakup. It was a chapter in her life that she remembers fondly. Not every Hollywood romance has to end in chaos. Of course, not all relationships are just about career growth. Some are deeply personal. Diane's marriages, first to Christopher Lambert and later to Josh Brolin, were a huge part of her journey. Her relationship with Lambert started while they were working on a film together, and for a time, it seemed like the perfect love story. But as Diane later admitted in an interview with Esquire, I found the absolutely least likely person on the planet Earth to give me what I needed. And isn't that just a painfully relatable sentiment? Sometimes love isn't enough. Sometimes two people can be good together in theory, but not in practice. And that's okay. Her marriage to Josh Brolin was another chapter, one that lasted from 2004 to 2013. It had its ups and downs, as all relationships do, but Diane has always been someone who handles things with grace. She doesn't dwell on the past in a bitter way. Instead, she keeps moving forward, always focused on what's next. That's one of the things that makes her so admirable. At the end of the day, Diane Lane's story isn't just about the movies she's made or the awards she's won. It's about the people who have shaped her along the way. From her father's wisdom to her grandmother's theatrical sermons, from working with legends to forming friendships that have lasted decades, and even the romances that were fleeting but meaningful. Every connection has left an imprint, living life on her own terms. Diane Lane is at a point in her life where everything she does is intentional. Her choices, her boundaries, her entire way of living. She's not just floating through Hollywood, letting the industry dictate how she should exist. She's setting the terms. And honestly, isn't that the dream? To be so in tune with yourself that you don't just go along with whatever is expected, but instead, you carve out your own space? That's exactly what Diane Lane has mastered. She's got this balanced, thoughtful approach to life that so many people spend years trying to figure out. And a huge part of that? Boundaries. Diane has always been someone who knows how to protect her peace. She doesn't just let the chaos of Hollywood seep into her everyday life. And that's something she's been intentional about for years. One of the biggest things she does? Creating tech-free zones. And let's be real, how many of us can actually say we do that? She's not glued to her phone, not drowning in an endless stream of notifications, and she's definitely not letting social media dictate her mood for the day. It's amazing how much clearer your thoughts become when you're not constantly bombarded by notifications, she says. And she's right. Think about it. When was the last time you sat in complete silence without reaching for your phone out of habit? Diane has found that giving herself those moments of clarity helps her feel more present, more in control. She's not letting outside noise dictate her inner peace. And that's just one way she stays centered in an industry that thrives on distractions. When it comes to relationships, Diane is equally mindful. She knows the industry is full of different personalities, some good, some not so much. Hollywood is filled with power dynamics, egos, and hidden agendas, but Diane has always had a way of keeping herself at a safe distance from anything that didn't align with who she is. It's that careful, intentional way of moving through life that has allowed her to keep her authenticity intact while still thriving in an industry that often demands people compromise themselves. And then there's her perspective on personal space, something she got an even deeper appreciation for during the pandemic. While a lot of couples found themselves stuck together, navigating new tensions and challenges, Diane was grateful for the solitude. I was grateful to go through the pandemic and not be in a relationship because I think that would have been very challenging to navigate, she reflects. All that time that many couples were irritated with each other, I got to have space and freedom to figure out, who am I? And that right there? That's gold. How often do people actually take the time to sit with themselves, uninterrupted, and really figure out who they are? Not who they are in a relationship, not who they are in response to someone else, but just themselves. Diane took that time and saw it as a gift, something that allowed her to deepen her understanding of what truly matters to her. A big part of what keeps her feeling balanced and clear-headed is her wellness routine. And no, it's not some overly complicated, expensive, 10-step process that only a celebrity could maintain. It's simple: meditation, movement, digital detoxes, mindful consumption of news and media. That last one is major, because let's be honest, so many people start their day by immediately diving into all the chaos of the world, and it just sets the tone for anxiety and stress. Diane is intentional about what she lets into her mental space. Meditation is a wonderful way to quiet your own world, she says, and that's something she prioritizes daily. She understands that in an industry where people are constantly pulling you in a million different directions, you have to create your own moments of stillness. Otherwise, you get swept up in it all, and before you know it, you're disconnected from yourself. But if there's one thing that has always been at the center of Diane's life, it's family. Her approach to parenting is rooted in setting clear boundaries while still fostering a loving relationship. She took inspiration from the book Get Out of My Life, But First, Could You Drive Me and Cheryl to the Mall by Anthony E. Wolfe. And honestly, the title alone tells you everything you need to know. Parenting isn't about being your child's best friend or explaining every decision in exhaustive detail. It's about keeping them safe and setting firm, healthy boundaries. Your job is to set the boundaries and keep your kids safe, she says, and she doesn't waver on that. She's not the type to let outside pressure change the way she parents. Hollywood can be a weird place to raise a child, but Diane has never let the industry's expectations override what she knows is best for her family. When it's all said and done, Diane Lane is someone who has built a life that truly aligns with who she is. She's not chasing trends. She's not trying to fit into someone else's mold. She's making choices that support her well-being, her peace, and her authenticity. Her career decisions aren't about just taking whatever comes her way. They're about knowing what truly matters. I made a list of the pros and cons of being away and realized my bread is buttered in my kitchen, not on movie sets, she shares. And that right there, that's clarity. That's knowing exactly what feeds your soul and making choices that honor that truth. She's also deeply aware that living an authentic life isn't just about her. It's about how she shows up in the world. Many books have been written on this. When you're not fully expressing yourself, you are cheating not only yourself, but the world around you from an actualized self, she says. And that's something she carries into both her personal and professional life. She's not holding back. She's not living for other people's expectations. She's choosing authenticity, peace, and purpose. And isn't that what we all want at the end of the day? To live in a way that feels true to who we really are? That's the Diane Lane way. With this, we have come to the end of this video. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, do well to like, comment, and subscribe for more content. To enjoy more thrilling stories, click now on the following video that pops up on your screen.